Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Reed, and I am a technical recruiter here at Google and also a Navy veteran. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carla McIntosh. I'm the head of talent acquisition at the U.S. Google Operations Center. I'm really excited to be here as well today. And we have a jam-packed agenda with 4 items. First one is going to be networking foundations. But before we dig into the content, I did want to remind you that these views represent our personal experience on us being talent acquisition professionals. They don't necessarily reflect those of Google, but we're hopeful that they'll be helpful to you in your job search, though they're not guarantees of employment. With that said, we'll have Liz get us started with networking foundations.
Awesome. Thanks, Carla. So networking is an intimidating word, especially when you're transitioning out of the military. But the reality is that networking is something you've most likely been doing your whole life. And a lot of people, especially veterans, only really start networking for a job when they actually need one. However, networking is not just about getting a job. It's also about figuring out which job you want and deciding which job to take. And it's something that really should be used throughout your job search. But before you begin networking, we recommend reflecting on your skill sets and how they could translate in the civilian world. So consider your strengths, your weaknesses, your likes and dislikes, and this will help give you a jumping off point for your networking conversations. And once you've done some self-reflection, you can begin exploring your network for more information. Your network can help you continue to hone and narrow down your job search, and also to learn more about how your skills might fit into a company or industry. When you're considering your network, we recommend that you focus on finding what we call mentors and sponsors. By mentors, we mean people who can coach you, help you learn about yourself and options within an organization. So consider, what industries do most of your network connections belong to? Who is doing interesting things and is willing to show you the ropes? And who can help you with interview prep? And in contrast, a sponsor is someone who has the ability to actually drive and contribute to hiring decisions within a company. So things to consider here are, how many of your connections are in hiring capacities? How many of your connections can speak directly to your work? And who can refer you in for roles? And when you're growing and building your current network, we recommend that you start with what you have. The military and veteran network is one of the most powerful networks in the world, so we recommend starting here for sure. And for every person you meet with, ask for 1 or 2 other people that they'd be willing to put you in touch with. LinkedIn is also a great place to start to better understand your network and begin to grow your connections. And while networking is very important, it's equally important that you begin to build your personal brand. And Carla is going to help us with this next.
Thanks so much for that. Personal brand. So it's very important when you're thinking about the transition to first define yourself. What do you want to do? What are your proven skills and areas of interest? Then you want to build. And that's really refining it and leveraging your network, those who can speak to your experience and your proven impact. Oftentimes with veterans, we don't always brag on ourselves, but this is an opportunity to really do that. And then next, you want to practice. So now you understand what your goals are, you've gotten feedback, you want to practice. And keeping in mind, this might involve an audience of 1 in a mirror, but it's really important that you do this and invest this time.
Yeah, and then totally spot on with the audience of 1 here, Carla. I think talking to yourself is totally acceptable here, and I highly recommend it to all my candidates, and also do it myself when I'm interview prepping, for sure.
Yeah. And then lastly, you want to share. The key is now that you refine this, you practice, it's very succinct. You want to share it with anyone that you meet. The key here is you want to take yourself viral in a really positive way, meaning anybody you meet can now speak about you. They know what your skills are, they know what your areas of interest are, and they now can advocate for you in rooms that you're not in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carla, all that was awesome. Would you mind talking to us a little bit more about good and bad pitches?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So in this example, let's just take a project manager. In this case, you see, here's a project manager with 5 years of experience leading strategic projects for the Department of Defense and VT-27 at Naval Air Station Corpus Christi. Mm-hmm. Now it's okay. I think we can do better.
Yeah.
Now, applying what we know, being a bit more specific, now we have a PMP certified project manager with 5 years of experience scaling global projects for the Department of Defense and Navy while generating over $5 million in savings. Here, we've taken and added some specific information that might resonate a bit better with some of the civilian marketplace. We've also removed the piece that specifically talks about VT27, because keeping in mind, civilian employers don't always understand military jargon, but we did speak about the Navy collectively because everyone grasped that concept. But we also show tremendous savings and that this person happens to have a certification, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And so now that we think about our elevator pitch, there's some key takeaways. First, we want to make sure that it's short and sweet. We want to focus on skills, interest, and goals. And we want to be sure to leverage our hard and soft skills. And in this case, our soft skills are really things that resonate from a cultural alignment perspective, mm-hmm. which are really, really helpful for veterans. And we want to make sure that we definitely leverage some of these inputs as we're thinking about building our resume. So as you can see now, there's two types of resumes. The first is chronological. A chronological resume is best suited for someone who has very clear experience. In this case, this person has been an instructor pilot and an aviation operations officer. So any recruiter or hiring manager seeing the resume can clearly see what this person's area of expertise is. But if you're someone who's maybe done many different deployments and had fragmented jobs that weren't connected, you're best suited to write more of a functional resume. And a functional resume is really going to highlight the specific skills that you have. And in this case, you see leadership and project management. These are areas that resonate with any civilian employer out there, regardless of the industry. So this is best suited to someone that has that fragment. So in summary, functional resumes, when are they used? A functional resume is best used when you have many different fragmented roles. The reason being is that it minimizes some of the choppiness that you might have experienced through your deployment that maybe makes it a little more difficult for people to understand exactly what you do. It also highlights your proven skills in a very clear way so people can advocate for you. Separately, chronological resumes. Those are best suited for individuals that have a very clear path and very similar roles, where a novice can look at their resume and see clearly what they do. It actually it emphasizes experience and specialization they already have, and it's very easy for hiring managers and recruiters to leverage it and make decisions about that. So now, when we think about this, how do we now integrate this into some of our veteran-specific resumes? Because we have different issues that we need to sort through. So let's talk about that.
Awesome, thanks, Carla. So resumes are near and dear to my heart since I've used so many of them as a recruiter every day here at Google. So I'm excited to share these best practices with everyone today. And the most important thing that any veteran can do when writing their resume is to ensure that their military experience is fully translated into bullet points that anyone without military experience can understand. This is far and away the biggest issue I see with veteran resumes and should really be your first step in putting a resume together. And this is critical because if the whole thing isn't translated well, your recruiter and interviewers won't be able to gauge what you actually did to determine if you meet the requirements for the role. And so we suggest 2 strategies for ensuring your resume is translated well. The first one is that you review your resume with 3 non-military friends and ask them to tell you what it is they think that you actually accomplished. And if they can explain it all clearly, you're good to go. And if not, you need to keep working on it. And the next strategy is that you can also get some really great ideas from looking at profiles of people on LinkedIn. If you want to be a program manager at Google, for example, go find one on LinkedIn and look at the wording that they use in their profile. And as an example of translation, if you've won NCOIC of the quarter, you need to be able to put down employee of the quarter because no one outside the military knows what an NCO is. The next best practice here is to always show impact. We suggest using an action verb, for example, led, at the beginning of every bullet point, and put the most impactful bullet points at the top. We also suggest that you always use numbers to allow your reader to understand scale and scope, so we can compare you to other applicants. So continuing with our first example, if you've won NCOIC of the quarter, you need to be able to put down employee of the quarter, selected out of 100 people, and this allows us to understand your accomplishment in comparison to others. The third best practice we have is to always be prepared to talk about anything on your resume with both your recruiter and your interviewers. Everything on there is fair game in an interview, so make sure that you know your stuff. And then lastly, our fourth best practice here is to always tailor your resume to the job description and company. This is important because your recruiters and interviewers are looking for keywords and accomplishments to determine if you embody the company's values and also if you meet the requirements for the role. It's also important because a lot of companies utilize applicant tracking systems that are tied to certain keywords. So it's crucial that you use the exact same words that you see in the job description so you can actually get picked up in the system and have your resume reviewed. So speaking of job descriptions, let's talk about what these actually look like. So here's a sample job description for a role that we have at Google. Most job descriptions will have three important components. The first one is the minimum qualifications or the baseline requirements that applicants need to meet for the job. And the next one is preferred qualifications, which we would call nice to haves for the role. And then lastly is our job responsibilities, which explain a little bit more about your day-to-day work. And as a recruiter, I can share that we anchor very heavily on the minimum preferred qualifications and preferred qualifications when looking for applicants, and that most applicant screening systems will as well. So we suggest starting with these for your resume. And what we've gone ahead and done here is that we've highlighted a few terms that could go in a potential resume for this job. You can see that there's a lot of things to highlight and to choose from here. So our suggestion is to use really what resonates with your background and experience when choosing keywords. You can also apply the same strategy when reviewing the job responsibility sections as well. We talked a little bit about the importance of showing impact. So what we've done here is provided an awesome framework to structure your bullet points. And by doing Z, what this means is that we're talking about the problems that need to be solved and the actions that you took to solve them. And in accomplishing X, we're talking about the impact of the project and also any supporting evidence, for example, awards. And then lastly, as measured by Y, really means the results of the action here. So putting this all together, here we've incorporated keywords and phrases from the program manager job description that we showed you on the previous slide to craft a really strong and impactful bullet point. You can see here that we use words and concepts like program management and also cross-functional team impact, and use numbers to outline and show the scope of the work. We recommend approaching all of your bullet points for your resume in the same way. Okay, so we've made it all the way through, and now I'd love to leave you with some final thoughts. Carla, do you have anything that you want to start with here?
I do. It's very important that you evolve this resume over time. Every day we're learning new things. So we want to make sure that our resume reflects every new learning that we have. And we also want to make sure that we practice with your dog, practice with your child, your friend, anyone, with yourself. But it's really important. Repetition is key so that it becomes second nature. What about you, Liz?
Yeah, Carla, I agree with all that. I can share, I've collectively probably spent about 50 hours on my resume and am continuously updating and changing it as our skill sets grow, right? So I highly recommend be prepared to be spending some time on it. And I love, the last suggestion I think that we have here for everybody is to really have fun and enjoy the journey. I think, no one, even us as recruiters and people that are in staffing at Google, there's no perfect way to land a job. It's really more of an art than a science. And I think the important thing is that you learn so much over time as you try different things. So definitely be risky when you're applying for jobs, and you really miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So we highly recommend that you try different things.
Awesome. And please don't miss out. Join us for our live Q&A on November 10th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And be sure to submit your questions via the form in the session description. But thank you so much. We have had a blast, and we hope these tips are helpful. Good luck in your job search.
Thank you.